Hello, and welcome to the Naughty Joke Box. I bet you bought this video cassette because you wanted to hear a lot of four-letter words, and filth, and jokes with rude ends, and rude beginnings and middles, too. Stop doing that while I'm talking to you. Oh, strike up that damn band, will you?
It's the Kenny Everett Naughty Joke Box. Starring Kenny Everett, Lennie Bennett, Willie Rushton, Barry Crowther, Junkin, Fogwell, Flax, and introducing Pat Mooney, here's Kenny.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those things that are sold over the counter, this video. It's not going out over the air, but we're not going to be too naughty because Derek and Clive have done that already. Right. There was this cunt with big tits. Good evening and welcome to my Naughty Joke Box. Yes, here we are in Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas. Or is it a grotty little Soho shithouse? We're ready to whip your brains to cream with jokes that Lord Thames and the Bede wouldn't let us do. But don't worry, Mum, we won't go too far, because there's a representative from the International Video Censorship Committee in attendance. He'll be keeping a close eye on the proceedings.
This is disgusting.
Then why are we doing it?
And now, who's going to be the first to get up and do some disgusting material? Who better than Mr. Filth himself, Junkin?
Terrible coming on after a dwarf. Oh, hell. May I say, not only is it a great pleasure for me to be here tonight, it is also bloody inconvenient. Lady went into the doctor. She said, I have a very embarrassing problem. He said, what is it? She said, well, I have to do a lot of public speaking. She said, and I'm perfectly all right in private life, but every time I get up to speak in public, I am bothered by attacks of the wind. And the doctor said, what do you mean? She said, well, it doesn't matter what I eat. It's obviously based on nerves or something, but every time I get up to speak in public, there's these terrible eruptions of wind. And the doctor said, well, would you like to show me? He said, what do you do? She said, I'm the, amongst other things, she said, I'm the president of the Women's Institute. He said, well, stand behind my desk and pretend that I'm the Women's Institute and give me a talk. And so she said, all right. And she got behind the desk and she said, ladies, I would like to say regarding the report for last year that some members are not... Doctor said, I see, that's fine. He said, now I understand your problem. And he went to the corner of the office and he got a 7-foot pole with a hook on top. And she said, what are you going to do with that? He said, open a window. A fellow was walking home from work one night and he suddenly passed a shoe shop, and in the shoe shop was a pair of shoes made of genuine crocodile skin, and he fell deeply in love with them. And he paid 75 quid for them, and he put them on, and he went home, and he stood there, and his wife said, your supper's on the table, and carried on reading her Mills and Boon. So he finished his supper, and he put his feet up on the table, and she took no notice. She just cleared the table. And he was very, very annoyed, and he walked around on the furniture, and she didn't say anything. And eventually she went up to bed, and he thought, she's going to notice my shoes. So he went up, and there she was with the hairnet and the Mills and Boon still going. Walked across the bed, nothing. So, absolutely furious, he went into the bathroom, took everything off except his shoes, and he walked back and he stood in the middle of the bedroom. He said, oi! She said, what? He said, did you notice anything? She looked up from the Mills and Boon. She said, I've seen that before. He said, look where it's pointing. She said, shame you didn't buy a new hat. Little boy and a little girl walking home from school. The little boy said, excuse me, and he went behind a tree. And little girl, being like all little girls are, went round and looked. And he was relieving himself, and she said, "What's that?" He said, "That's my tinkler." She said, "Oh, my dad's got 2 of them." He said, 2? She says, "Yeah, a little one for doing wee-wees and a big one for cleaning the au pair's teeth."
Is it in?
Yes.
Does it hurt?
No, it feels beautiful.
Would Madam care to try the other one on?
Oh, yes, please.
You're in there. Say when.
Right after the next drink.
What is it? Well, this is Soho. So we thought we'd bring you a little of what was going on. It's absolutely disgusting, but it is. This is the editorial bit where, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just trying to bring your attention to the sort of filth that's going on in our world. Ooh, don't you wish you had one of these at home? Let's go amongst the audience and try it out. Jesus Christ! Darling, how are you? Do you know, there's a lovely story about this man that... Shut up. That, you know, he was hanging on the cross and that, and there was a 5-minute break, and he said, "So, oh, Christ's sakes, hand me a fag." So somebody went up the ladder and put a fag in his mouth. Somewhere there is a photograph of Jesus Christ with and a fag hanging out. No, perhaps not. There was this nun in the convent garden, vegetable patch, right? Sprinkling seeds. Sprinkle, 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 sprinkle. Crowd of crows comes down. Peck, 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 peck. "Fuck off," she says. "Go on, fuck off. How dare you? Fuck off." Mother Superior comes out from behind a cloister. "Sister Teresa, you mustn't say that word. Just say shoo, and they'll fuck off just the same." Who's next? And now, from the antique to the modern and sophisticated. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody you might have seen on Tiswas on Saturday morning, best programme in the universe. And I'm on wireless at Saturday morning when Tiswas is on Death City. But here's somebody who makes it the best programme in the world, Fogwell Flax.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, I really actually...
Okay, cut it, please.
Thank you.
I love you, I love you, darling.
Oh, one more drink and I'm going to feel it.
One more drink and I'm gonna let you feel.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, I really actually...
Okay, cut it, please.
Thank you.
Hello, shitheads. Gizzard puke here. Supply any class for the evening? You may notice the accent. I borrowed it off one of my old characters. I haven't got too many, I've got to make them last. You may wonder why I have so much class. It's because I went to a very exclusive school. Not just anyone can go there, you got to be sent there by a judge. I remember one day we were sitting there in a classroom and a teacher came in and said, "OK, you
turds. We're going to have a different kind of lesson today. It's like an observation test. I'm going to hold various objects behind my back and give you a brief description of them, and you got to try and guess what they are. Right. I've got something behind my back now. It's yellow, and you can eat it. I said, it's a banana. She said, no, it's a lemon, but shows your thinking. She said, I got something else now behind my back, something else. It's red, and you can eat it. I said, it's an apple. She said, no, it's a plum. Shows your thinking. Just then, a little kid in a corner said, hey, Teach, I got one for you. I got something in my hand under the desk. 3 inches long, red at the end. Teacher said, you filthy little bastard. He said, it's a matchstick. Shows your thinking, no? Here, did you hear about this little boy who, 5 years old, got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, on his way past his mother and father's room, pokes his head through the door, watches for a few minutes, and then says, how do you like that? And they tell me off for sucking my thumb.
I really like the way that he had the nerve to say that. His eyes are cute and flirty, but his jokes are rather dirty.
Isn't it a shame there's so many respectable people wanting to buy this tape? Who is it? Lennie Bennett, oh dear. Oh, all down in one go, quick. He's not watching me. Watch it, son. Right. OK, you video viewers, here's something to cram between your eyeballs. A little from just over there, he's going to come all the way over there to here to tell you a lot of jokes. You can laugh if you like. What the hell are these things? Have you know? What is that?
I could use it to dry my hair on.
He used to be washing his feet. Ladies and gentlemen, Leonard Bennett, thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you. There's always something very reassuring about following the interval. Yeah. Doesn't make it... Thank you, Ken, for the introduction. They're terrific, that. Got a lot of class, but it's all third. Ladies and gentlemen, to tell you the truth, I don't even want to be on the damn cassette. I don't do this kind of thing. I do a game show. I won't even mention the name of it. It's humiliating. It's the kind of show that people watch if they find blankety blank too intellectually challenging. And I'm here tonight as part of the Brit Eklund Youth Opportunity Scheme. Very much like William Rushton, I came totally unprepared. I thought it was about time somebody talked about Everett himself. Oh. Quite right. What do we know about this man?
Oh dear.
Space traveller, intellectual. Faggot. I didn't say faggot, you did. I'm not saying he's a faggot, but he's about to make a new film called Tinker Tailor, Soldier, Sailor, 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 Sailor. It is a delight to be in the presence of such great megastars here tonight. Robert Powell's here tonight. Nice to see you, Robert, with a sweater with, what is it written on it? Perrier written on his sweater. It's because he walks on it. And I thought we might discuss tonight Everett, the man. What do we know of Kenny Everett? We know, of course, that he was the man that invented the surface-to-air heat-seeking suppository. But I have in my hand a piece of paper given to me by Ken's own personal press representative, Ken Livingston. Let me tell you about Ken. Ken was born in Derbyshire, just outside of wedlock. Many of you might not know this, but Kenny Everett, when he was a child, had personal complaint. He wet the bed. His grandfather cured him. He bought him an electric blanket. Because one of the great influences on Kenny Everett's life was his dear grandfather, a wonderful man in many ways, his grandfather. His own grandfather had his own career. He was a missionary to Africa in the 1930s. There's a bit of scandal attached to it. Ken doesn't talk about it because in 1937 his grandfather was dismissed. He was unfrocked for committing a certain offence. It was all to do with an ostrich. Apparently he came across it with its head buried in the sand and one thing led to another. Most embarrassing for Ken because he said to his grandfather, how could you do a thing like that with an ostrich? And he said, I was okay for the first 5 miles and then I got out of step. He grew up a happy child. A little later in his life, his first job, he was a contortionist. A little later after that, he was arrested for indecent exposure. He was worried in case he'd had it hanging over his head for the rest of his life. And his first job, according to this, was at the London Zoo. He was sacked for putting Valderma on the leopards. And as part of his ongoing career, he joined the army. They had a long military tradition in the Everett family. His father was a prisoner of war for 5 years in England. And Ken went for his army medical, and the doctor said, take all your clothes off, and he did. And the doctor left, which is humiliating for a man. And Ken said, what are you laughing at? And the doctor went, oh. And Everett said, we're only going to fight them, aren't we? And, he left the army and he came into show business, for which we're all very grateful because Ken, I mean, many people say he's a superstar, he's a megastar. Some people say he's a boring little fart. But...
No, wait a minute.
I know you like ketchup with everything, but this is ridiculous.
You know, darling, I've always had a soft spot for you.
So I've noticed.
Now it is time for a break, so let's break.
Who's the next one? Pat Boone. And now here's someone, hand on heart, please. And now here's someone I know nothing about at all. Pat Mooney.
Thank you. I feel very unique here tonight. I'm the only comic I've never heard of before. Nice to see you. Looking up with a little bit of Irish news about the acid bath murder in Dublin. The murderer lost his hand taking the plug out. That's not too blue, is it? No? Just for a change, I'm going to do this act in a North of Ireland accent. I come from a little fishing resort in Northern Ireland called Belfast. You've heard of Belfast, have you? There's no inflation there. The prices are going up, but the shops are coming down. I went over there last week to do a television show in Belfast. I was scared stiff going home to Belfast. I bought myself a bulletproof vest, and a leprechaun shot me up the arse. My pal Murphy, he's Irish, through a friend of his father's. He's a great character, Murphy. He's been married twice. He lost his first wife in a wishing well. His name's Mick Murphy, but all the girls in Ireland call him Nicholas, because that's how he normally leaves them. He went to the doctor. He says, Doctor, I'm very worried. He says, when I make love to my wife, the first time I make love to her, I'm freezing cold. Freezing. And the second time, I'm all boiling hot and sticky and sweaty and perspiring all the time. The doctor says, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I've never known this before. I'll have to examine you. And he gives him a cardiograph and blood pressure and kidney test and everything. He says, I can see nothing wrong with you. You better send your wife in. And Mrs. Murphy came in. He says, can you explain this, Mrs. Murphy, that when he makes love to you, the first time he's freezing cold, and the second time he's all boiling hot and sticky and sweaty and perspiring all the time? Oh, she says, easy enough, doctor. The first time's in January, the second time's the middle of August. I've got a friend of mine in Ireland. He's suffering from sexual impotency. And he went to see his Dr. Rafferty, and Dr. Rafferty says, "You're a very lucky man." He says, "There's a new thing come on the market," he says, "straight from Africa. It's powdered rhino horn." He says, "Get these horns of the rhino, they crush it into powder, you take a spoonful every day for a week, and after a week you're flying." And he took it for 7 days, and every time he got an erection, he used to charge Range Rovers. This girl. What about that fella in Belfast? He hated his wife that much, he wrote Protestant on her back and sent her down the Falls Road. And she came home that night with £60 in her pocket because he couldn't spell Protestant.
I overheard a couple of tarts talking as I came here, in Dean Street. And one said, "How's business, love?" She said, "Marvellous." She said, "It's unbelievable. Unbelievable, dear." She said, "Well, if I had another pair of legs, I'd open in Manchester." Ridiculous, isn't it? Of course, I think all this censorship thing started many years ago when a director of the spoken word, whatever that means, was working for BBC Sound Radio, and he sent out a memorandum to all the scriptwriters, who included in those days a very young Frank Muir, who was, is, and always will be a very witty man. Well, I personally happen to think that any person who thinks they ought to write a musical about the Queen, called Corgi and Bess, is a very witty man. And this memorandum read as follows: "On no account in future must comedy material be made of the following subjects: religion, the royal family, disability, racialism, or homosexuality." Well, there's not a lot left. And Frank Muir looked at this awful piece of paper and said, "Well, of course, the only way I can possibly remember any of this at all is to say to myself constantly, 'My God,' said the Queen, 'I do believe that one-armed nigger's a puff.'" And just to prove that things have changed slightly since those days, here are jokes on just one or two of these subjects. Religion. A novice nun bursts into the room of the Mother Superior and says, "Oh, Holy Reverend Mother, there's a case of syphilis in the nunnery." She said, "Thank God for that, we've run out of the Beaujolais." Or the other nun who's hitching a lift on the A1 on the way up to a new nunnery that was being opened in Whitby. And a very butch lorry driver, oh, it could happen, and a very butch lorry driver gives her a lift. And they're thundering up the A1, and he says, "Do you fancy our breakfast?" She said, "Well, I'm afraid I can't afford it." He said, "Well, I'll buy it for you. It'll cost you." She said, "Yes, I think I know what you mean." So they had breakfast, pull up a Carmen. A little way further on, they got into a lay-by, aptly named, and he had his wicked way, as they say. And they start thundering once again, due north up the A1. And he said, "What you going to tell the Mother Superior at this gaff in Whitby then, when you get there?" She said, "Well, I shall simply inform her that I was given a lift all the way up into Yorkshire by a delightful and very desirable young lorry driver who raped me twice." He said, "What you talking about, twice?" She said, "Well, we're going to have lunch, aren't we?"
I've never said a naughty word despite what you have heard. I'd never say a naughty word, 'cause I'd feel like a turd.
Is Kenny walking into this then? Yeah. Why don't you ask him? Bitchy poo. This isn't the debonair, Whistling days. I don't believe it. It's Emmanuel right here next to me. It's my lucky day. Together we'll reach the heights of ecstasy. You with all that, and me with my burning desire for the bizarre. Come with me now, my little hot face, to erotica. That's where you want to go, isn't it?
No, Luton Airport.
Ladies and gentlemen, great, wonderful friend of mine. Ah, look at that hair. You could read a book by it at night. Barry Crowther!
If you believe I'm the top of the bill, do you want to buy this watch? Wouldn't give this spot to a leopard. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The anticlimax is now on the stage. Which reminds me of the incident when I said to my wife, when you reach a climax, why didn't you ever say anything? She said, you're never there. Pat Mooney and I were speaking earlier this evening, viewers at home, about our acts, and we thought it would be fun to swap them. So, here is Pat Mooney's act. Ever seen a human sacrifice before, folks? I'd like to welcome you to this Friends of Gaddafi Hot Pot Supper. The producer of this show, an old friend, not of mine, rang me and I paid for the call. And he's a very persuasive man. He could sell the Ayatollah aftershave. And an interesting man. He's got a Braille copy of Penthouse in his car. And he... I don't know what he does, but his self-winding watch shows December the 18th, 1997. And... he asked me along, and I said, I don't tell jokes, my big thing is magic, but that's just my opinion. And it's nice to be here at the Hollywood Bowl, because usually I work hotels, and when you work hotels, you get a whole different slant on things, because hotels are owned by Arabs these days. The whole sphere of influence has shifted, hasn't it? Why do people think Arabs are so clever? Because they're in oil, you know. Sardines are in oil, nobody thinks they're clever. Climb in a tin, close the lid, and hear the bloody key outside. But you hear things in hotels. I heard two salesmen talking one night, and one said, I'm in microchips, we're so successful, we're moving into smaller premises. And the other one said, I'm doing chest wigs. He said, you're kidding me? He said, no, I'm doing chest wigs. He said, it's a big thing now. He said, you're kidding me? He said, kidding you? He said, we're doing so well next year, we're thinking of going pubic. I did a football dinner at Wembley. I'll go through the material just for the edit. I haven't got a piece of paper. Mind you, there are times this evening when I wished I had. But I was at... I did a football dinner at Wembley. I met Britt Ekland, bless her. And we were with a lot of Norwegian businessmen. This is absolutely true, and I know nothing about Norway, apart from the fact that Britt told me she worked her way through it one summer. And, no, she's lovely. She's known in our business as Martini. Anytime, but the Norwegian businessmen were telling me about a commercial they'd made, which was a great failure, because you know the big thing is Danish lager in this country. And the Norwegians had made a lager, and they called it Pjors, which I think just means lager in Norwegian. And they made a commercial, and it was a classic, because the man's voice said, looking for something different, this one is Norwegian. Looking for something light, bright, with a bit of a bite, get Pjors, the Norwegian lager. So next time you're looking for something that little bit different, say to your barman, up yours. But be careful, his knee may refresh parts other barman cannot reach. When you stand up here, I mean, it's amazing tonight. I am, as I say, in the anticlimax on legs. You cast your mind back to the jokes you've heard through the years. One of my favourites was the curate who was going to give his very first sermon. He was very nervous and apprehensive. And he said, the older, more experienced vicar, he said, what do you do? He said, well, you've seen me give many a sermon. He said, yes. He said, you've seen the glass of water on the pulpit rail? He said, yes. He said, well, it's not water, it's neat gin. So the young curate took this tip, and he had a big tumbler of neat gin, and he quaffed from it all through the sermon. And afterwards he went back to the vicar, and he said, how was that? He said, it's one of the best first sermons I've ever heard. He said, it had fire and authority and held the congregation. Very good indeed. He said, just three little things I'd like to tell you. He said, when you finish the sermon, he said, don't tear up your notes and throw them at the congregation. He said, when you leave the pulpit,
walk down the stairs, don't slide down the banister. And strictly speaking, David slew Goliath. He didn't knock 7 bloody bells out of him. And his sling was full of shot.
Why, my chickadees, smile first thing in the morning and get it over with. I'd like to perform a little tune entitled Keep the Door Open, Richard, or Don't Close the Door on Me Dick. Don't make love in the cornfield, Nellie. You're working against the grain. And a sad one. The boy stood in the chip shop eating fresh fried scallops. One fell down his trouser legs and burnt him on the ankle. Missed his bollocks completely.
Thank you, the pump will do fine!
Where I was like a little boy in a shop. He's watched all the John Wayne films, and he's standing in a shop with a cowboy hat and a toy cap gun. And he walks up to the counter and says, "Stick your hands up, I want ice cream." And she says, "Do you want crust nuts?" He says, "Do you want your tits blowing off?" No, thank you. I mean, take her home, she's ready. No, like the little boy that comes home from his school party. Right? Sorry, this mum is talking to him. She says, "Have a nice time, love." "It was great, Mum." "What did you do?" He said, we had jellies and blancmange and ice cream and cakes, and I got my leg over in the Wendy house." She locked him in the bedroom. His dad came in, went upstairs. "What have you been up to, you?" He said, "I've only been to the party, Dad." "What were you doing?" "We had jellies and blancmange and ice cream and cakes and..." "Got me underway in the Wendy house, Dad." His dad trembled. He picked the lad up by his collar. He carried him down to the back kitchen and stood him against the cupboard. Bent over, picked a metal frying pan up. His mother shouted, "No! Don't hit him! Oh, he's only a baby." He said, "I'm not touching him, I'm cooking him a steak. Can't get his leg over on bloody jellies and blancmange and It's amazing. I mean, okay, Wendy House, I mean, they have them in play schools, don't they? I mean, the kids, before they even go to school, are indoctrinated as to what life is really about. I mean, have you seen this programme that's on all week? I mean, in England, in Britain, it's a very, very popular programme. It's on twice a day all week. And it's sort of, it's called Play School, and it shows children how to live the real life. It shows them, they sort of have to act it out, don't they? They have all these games where they pretend to live. Right, they do lots of lovely little sketches. Like, "Hello, I'm going fishing today. I've got a rod. Some fishermen have big rods. Oh, I've caught something. Men with big rods often do. To go fishing, we need bait, like flies. And fleas. I like fleas. I think I'll be a flea. Bing. Bing. You try. You can be a flea, find a partner at home, and have a jump. It's amazing. I mean, to have a jump, what do you need to have a jump? You need to visit a chemist for a start off, don't you? So, I mean, you can't hide the kids in chemists. They're going to be there, aren't they? The things you get asked for in chemists. Have you seen the sort of people who go rather embarrassed to the counter, sort of... "Excuse me, could I have a packet of protectives and a box of Quells, please?" I thought, if it makes you sick, don't do it.
Good job, that. Ooh. Hello, darling. I know I'm a dirty, stinking, spotty old fart, but, you know, you and me, together, sliding around over each other, we could make beautiful music, you know, darling, you know? How about it, eh? How about it, eh?
Do you mind?
Do you mind? Good job, that. Hello, darling.
Hello.
Ooh, would you like to come and play? You know, you and me, together, alone, the two of us, making beautiful music. I mean, say the word and... Oh my God. I mean, how about it, eh?